Hey everybody, and welcome to another segment of AstrologyAnswers.com's weekly forecast. My name is Terence. The week begins on Monday, February the 24th, 2025. Sorry about the eye patch. It's not serious. I just didn't. Well, let's back up. Several days ago, I had to have old cataract surgery repaired. And it's a very easy eye surgery procedure, and it was just a couple of days ago. My eyesight is really good. I'm feeling really good. Nothing to worry about. But my eye is really bloodshot from all the bruising. So I didn't want you looking at this bright red eye and getting distracted, even though the eye patch is probably distracting you. So nothing to worry about. This is a very important week because we're having a new moon on Thursday, which we have every 4 weeks. Mars just went direct yesterday on the 23rd. That occurs every 2 years. And Venus, creative, relational, pleasurable Venus, goes retrograde on Saturday, March the 1st. So there's a lot of change. Let's start with the new moon is on Thursday. And as I say every month, the 4 or 5 days up to a week before the new moon, it's a winding down and wrapping up of the previous new moon. And so the energy is winding down, it's bringing closure, it's in a holding pattern before it marks a new cycle, a new lunar cycle, where your priorities will be shifted, your attention will be shifted to a different area. And basically, it means that you don't want to make major important decisions when the week, 5 days or so prior to the new moon, because the energy is winding down. And you want to wait until after the new moon when the energy is winding up and gearing up to move forwards to a new priority. All right, so on Monday, the 24th, I always start with where is the moon, because the moon sets the emotional tone and reactions of the public. The moon is in Capricorn, which is a really great sign, one of the great signs to start a new work week, because Capricorn is very pragmatic, business-minded, very goal-oriented. Now, that moon in Capricorn will be in harmony, called a trine, to progressive, innovative, futuristic Uranus. It's peaking for like a couple of hours, but only mid-morning Pacific time. This is a great cycle to break out of old habits, starting to get excited about new possibilities. But anything significant, you wouldn't want to start until after the new moon, but you might start preparing and thinking about it on Monday. On Tuesday, now the moon, for most of you as we wake up, is going to already be in Aquarius. Aquarius, where Capricorn is traditional, conventional. When the moon every once a month for 2.5 days is in Aquarius, Aquarius is unconventional. It was very progressive. It looks to the future. The moon in Aquarius by mid-afternoon will be in harmony with harmonious, creative, relational Venus. So for a couple of hours mid-afternoon, this is very favorable for relationships, for socializing. And later in the early evening, Pacific time, now the moon will be in harmony, called a trine, to optimistic, expansive Jupiter. Now this is, with the moon, there's a lot of very positive energies. But also throughout the day, communication, decision-making Mercury is aligned with Saturn. Now, The dark side, the limiting side, can, with Mercury to Saturn, could be really worrying, saying goodbye, obsessing. Those are some of the dark side of Mercury-Saturn aligning, maybe only once a year. But there's such positive emotional energy with the moon, with pleasure-seeking Venus, social Venus, cooperative Venus, and then on to lucky, expansive Jupiter. So I would think more of the positive of the Mercury-Saturn is feeling more positive and confident because of the moon, to be making commitments, to be making really important decisions, but yet preparing, but not yet acting on any major new events, new projects. So on Wednesday, the moon is in Aquarius, continues in Aquarius, because the moon goes from sign to sign every 2.5 days. The moon in Aquarius will be squaring or forming a 90-degree angle to Uranus, disruptive, rebellious, unexpected Uranus. Now, this only happens for an hour or two. It's in the middle of the afternoon. This can mean emotional mood, unexpected surprises, or upsets. It can be good for getting you out of your old rut. But at 2:05 p.m. Pacific time, the Aquarius moon goes void of course. And it's going to remain void of course through the rest of Wednesday into Thursday at 12:47 a.m. Pacific time. I always mention the moon void of course is when the moon is about ready to change signs, but it's no longer making any aspects to other planets, so there's no planetary activity, so the energy is flat. So you don't want to launch important new events when the energy is flat and unproductive, but you can stay on the same course that you've been on, just don't introduce anything new. Plus, it's also the day before the dark side of the moon, before the new moon. So on the 27th, the new moon is in Pisces, which is now drawing our attention to where Pisces falls in your chart. Overall, see, the last new moon was in Aquarius 4 weeks ago. Aquarius tends to be very intellectual, very impersonal. But when the new moon is in Pisces, Pisces is more of this intuitive, compassionate, sensitive. It's more of the heart, where the Aquarius is more of the mind. And this new moon in Pisces, and where Pisces impacts your chart, is where your priority is being directed. But this new moon is squaring or forming a hard angle to expansive Jupiter. But Jupiter is one of the great benefic energies of the chart. So you could be saying what's starting off that's engaging everybody with this new moon could be people be a little bit too idealistic or hopeful, maybe having a little bit inflated expectations and not being grounded. So the best advice with this sensitive Pisces new moon in a difficult energy to Jupiter is try to breathe and stay grounded and be much more realistic. If anything seems really wildly expansive and optimistic, maybe you need to think about it because you're only going to have to pull back if you were promising too much. But overall, you're feeling really optimistic. On Friday, with the moon continuing in Pisces, around 5, 6 a.m., maybe 7 a.m. Pacific time, that sensitive Pisces moon will be trining or in harmony with Mars. So there's that public moon, which is being more compassionate and empathetic, is triggering this ambitious, assertive Mars. So you may be feeling more compelled to charity, helping those less fortunate, bringing back more passion. But by late morning, Pacific time, 11, 12, maybe going into 1 p.m., the Pisces moon will be crossing over Saturn, which has been since the last 2 years has been in Pisces. So when the moon crosses Saturn once a month, you might be feeling emotionally contracted, isolated, worrying too much. It's a time maybe taking on a lot of emotional responsibilities, but nothing to be worried about. Could only last an hour or two, especially as we get to a couple of hours later into mid-afternoon Pacific time. Now the Pisces moon is sextiling or in harmony with liberating progressive Uranus. So with the moon Saturn, you might be feeling very serious. But when the moon is positive with Uranus, you're breaking out of old restricted habits and patterns. You're more futuristic, you're more hopeful, getting out of the old rut and routines. Saturday, March the 1st, Venus, pleasurable, sociable, creative Venus, goes retrograde in the sign of Aries, and it will be retrograde until April the 11th. Venus retrogrades every 18 months. It's a time of testing and reevaluating relationships, maybe creative projects. One of the things you don't want to do or really think before acting is Venus is about beauty, and you wouldn't want to have any cosmetic treatments, procedures when Venus is retrograde. It doesn't mean that you're going to get scarred, but maybe you're having, especially with that new moon with Jupiter, maybe you're having big expectations that your treatment is you're going to be so thrilled and happy that it makes you look 20 years younger. And one possibility with the Venus in retrograde is you look better. You don't look much, much younger. People will say, well, did you just go on a vacation? You look so rested. But you could be feeling really disappointed because maybe you wanted to look 15 years younger. This is a time of testing relationships, reevaluating relationships, and if your relationship has been weak, this is really going to show up the cracks and the problems. And if you don't start working on the relationship, it could start to really break down. You don't want to start a new relationship with Venus in retrograde because you don't have all the information about who you are attracted to. It may be a good person. It may be a good attraction, but they may still be on the rebound from a recent relationship. They may still be getting a divorce, but they're not telling you that they're still married. So it can bring in a lot of complications. So if you start to become really attracted to somebody, that's wonderful. With Pisces, you could be feeling, with the new moon in Pisces, you could be feeling very romantic. But you want to just take it slow and don't make any decisions or don't try to have any kind of expectations until after Venus goes direct, April the 11th. And on Sunday, March the 2nd, the moon continues in fiery Mars, or in fiery Aries. Aries is ruled by Mars. Around 6-7 a.m. Pacific time, that impatient, aggressive moon in Aries will be squaring or hard angled to Mars. That can trigger a tremendous amount of irritability, impatientness, but it only lasts an hour or two. And if you're feeling all that anxiousness, tension in the physical body, it's good for exercising. Don't overdo it because you could pull a muscle, but enough to get the stress out of the body. And for the entire day, the sun in Pisces will be squaring Jupiter. Now, this was promised on the new moon on Thursday, with the new moon squaring Jupiter. But on Sunday the 2nd, now the sun, part of the new moon, is going to exactly be squaring Jupiter. So it's a day where you could be feeling very hopeful and optimistic, and decision-making Mercury is aligned with Neptune. Mercury, Neptune, you could be feeling very idealistic. It's very intuitive. It's very compassionate energies. So with the Mercury to the Neptune and the Sun in triggering Jupiter, you could be feeling very expansive and hopeful and optimistic. Just make sure your feet are grounded and you're being realistic, because you could be so euphoric about the possibilities. Some of you may not be doing totally with reality. There's some really good energies here. You just want to make sure you're staying grounded. I want to thank you for watching. I hope to see you next week with my next segment. Until then, be safe and well.